Hey everybody, it's Dr. Joe, and on this Wealth Wednesday, and it's Wednesday evening. Hopefully, the weather is great wherever you are, and another great session lined up. This time around, we have a special guest, Charles Ho, and Charles is based in the Washington D.C. area, and he's just finished a project off, and in fact, we're going to have an event on Saturday, November the 16th, this Saturday in the Washington, D.C. area. So if you're in the D.C. area, feel free to register and attend. You can go to my website, www.joeasimo.com. Let's have a look. See if I can pull that up there. And no, it's not that one. It's this one. How about this one? Here we go. And so let's have a look. Take that on. Technical issues, obviously. I'm not the greatest technical guy, but there we go. So yeah, so you can go to the website www.joeasimo.com to attend this Saturday's event here with Charles. Essentially, as a backdrop, Charles is a new investor, and they bought a house here in the DC, and it was originally a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. And through hard work, trials and tribulations, the good, bad, and the ugly experiences, he was able to reach the finish line. And so today we're going to be talking, about his experience during the project. So without much ado, let me see if I can bring Charles on. Want to bring the man, the myth, the legend. Here he is. Hey, Charles, how's it going, guy?
Good. How are you doing?
Okay, fine. You're gonna have to talk a little louder because you're a little faded again.
Okay. Yeah, I'll talk real loud. I don't do these very often. This has got to be one of the first live streams I've ever done. So yeah, this is exciting. I'm excited.
Okay, so hopefully everyone can hear Charles, and if not, just let me know, and I'll tell him to scream and shout in the microphone, and so on. So the title of this live stream is making money and a difference, investing with purpose, specifically using Section 8 and the BRRRR strategy. And is that a good title, you think, based on your experience, Charles? And tell us more about yourself, who you are, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so I actually grew up in Toronto for the first 21 years of my life. Went to school there, and after college, decided that I wanted to try something new, live in a new city. Just growing up in the same place, and so Washington D.C. Seemed to be a great place. It was actually my one and only job application that I sent out, and the engineering firm, because that's what I studied in school, decided they wanted me. So I was like, you know what, capital city of America seems pretty cool. Let's give it a whirl. And so that's kind of what I did. And I don't know if you remember this, Dr. Joe. I actually met you 7 years ago, 2017. BC, before COVID.
That before my gray hairs or after my gray hairs? or you the cause of my gray hairs? I don't
know. Could be both. I won't confirm or deny it, but I met you at a real estate investor event, networking event, and so I got to know what you were doing, just talking with you. And found out that you were really ingrained in this Section 8 way of investing. Still didn't know what BRRRR was back then. I'm like, what the heck is that? But got to start reading books, and this this was 7 years ago.
Wow.
Wow. And so for all this, that's just to say, for all like the novices that are like, oh man, I'll never get to do it. How do I start? It's just, it took me 7 years of just constant learning and following and just educating myself on real estate before I was finally ready and mentally ready to pull the trigger.
Okay. So what does that mean? Because a lot of people on this live stream who attended a lot of classes, courses, events, read books, watch YouTube, TikTok, whatever it is. I mean, when did you feel you were ready?
Yeah, part of it is when I finally read so many books that I'm like, I don't think I can absorb anymore. It's just at this point, you just kind of have to do it. Like there's only so much education and educating yourself in theory that you can read before you just have to apply.
Okay.
And that's kind of the where you know the rubber met the road. Now it's like I just have to do it. You know, it also took a little bit of time, and we can dive into this a little bit later in you know finding private investors to fund the deal. Coming up with my own money too. That obviously takes some time because investing, you can't invest if you don't have money.
Right. What? You mean the seller doesn't want money? That's not what the guru say. That's not what TikTok says.
Right. They just tell you, oh yeah, start, you know, wholesaling and bird dogging. Next thing you know, you're going to become a millionaire.
Exactly.
And sadly, it's not that easy. It takes a lot of hard work. It's a lot of you know, networking, and you know, real estate is a people business. And I learned that. It took me a while to learn that too. And so
Okay, good.
yeah, that's kind of how I
So
started.
okay, so you decided to pull the trigger, but what specifically? Why did you choose this strategy? The BRRRR Section 8, you know, buy and hold. What? Why that one?
Yeah, so for those that don't know what BRRRR is, it's an acronym, right? It's buy, you know, renovate, refinance, and repeat. There we go. Thanks for the help. But some of the major advantages of this strategy is just the velocity and the ability to recycle your money, right? And with that you can scale. And so I love that, the ability to do that. Now, why Section 8 in particular? One of the things that really drew me to this is sort of the recession-proof type of rental income that you can get, because you know it's the government, it's a government entity that is providing rental payment rather than the individual themselves. And so you know, it's a lot more stable, and that's what I really strive for as well, is just the stability when it comes to investing.
Right.
And then the other thing too is, right, being able to provide a beautiful home for, you know, marginalized communities in a world that, like, real estate is becoming more and more expensive. Just being able to provide a dream home for a family is touching. And so there's like a profit portion of it, and then there's purpose as well. Right. And so kind of mishmashing those two together was how I knew this was the right strategy.
Good. So we're gonna, you know, for those people who you know, we're going to get to that bit later on. This whole notion of a Section 8 tenant, you know, this infamous Section 8 tenant. You know, you've gone through that process, and but one thing we will try to do on Saturday, you know, Charles has identified the tenant, which we're going to talk about a bit later on. But for those people who are kind of curious, you know, what is a Section 8 tenant? Do they have 3 eyes? Do they have 4 heads? You know, who is this person? You know, we're going to try to invite the tenant that Charles has selected for his house. So that's one of the great things. If you're in the DC area, you may want to come down. We'll hear her story, their story. It's a very touching story. So we'll get to that, you know, that whole tenant selection phase, Charles. And I'd like to, you know, hear your thoughts looking back now, and how it you know, how it impacted you. So okay, so let's just kind of delve a little bit more into the BRRRR strategy. Okay, so at this point, you decide you want to do the BRRRR. You decide you want to kind of go the buy, hold, rent to a Section 8, and we kicked the project off. And now I was helping you through the entire process, but you were doing obviously a lot of the major heavy lifting, but I was also working with you throughout the process. But what were some of the obstacles? Let's talk about the rehab. Well, maybe we'll talk about the money first. Yeah, because everyone likes to know about what money. The money. You know, how much did you pay for this house, and how did you round up the money?
Yeah, so looking at the acquisition cost, right? The house itself was initially listed for $625,000. It took a long time before we had an in with the owner, and when they actually decided to sell it, we just kind of resent, our offers to them, and on the third time they finally said, you know what, we're ready to let it go, and they let it go for $540,000. The renovation cost was about $300,000 and some change. Okay. So at this point, the all-in cost is $840,000.
Yeah. So for those people who live in lower priced areas, you're probably thinking, what, $540,000? Are you crazy? Who does that? $300,000 for a rehab? Are you psychotic or what? But in the DC area, it's an expensive market, and a 540,000, let's just say 550,000, didn't get you a whole lot in terms of a pristine house. It needed work. So kind of tell us from your outset, when you saw the house, what made you decide, yes, this is the one I want to go with?
Yeah, so it was really, really old. It needed a full gut renovation, and that's exactly what you're looking for whenever you're trying to go with and do the BRRRR strategy, right? You're looking for really, really outdated homes that need TLC, where you can add value and sort of force that appreciation up. So whenever you refinance, you can hopefully pull as much money. The optimal scenario being that you can pull all the money that you sink into the house back into your pocket, and so that way you can recycle. The attributes of this house that I really, really liked was that it had an unfinished basement. It had an unfinished attic as well, or attic space that was a semi bedroom at the time, and there was oversized spaces, oversized closets in certain rooms that were primed for an extra bathroom. And those are the things that you're looking for when it comes to adding value, right? You want to add bedrooms, which we did in the unfinished basement and the attic. And then you want to add bathrooms, because those two are sort of the criteria, as well as square footage in a home, that really drives up the price.
Yep. Fantastic. Okay. So you saw this house, you saw some potential that, if you were to do some renovations, you could, improve the house, add value, force appreciation, and things like that. And one of the things that everyone knows is that with Section 8, the more bedrooms, the more rent. And your house was originally, I think, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath. And we could have obviously, which we did, increase the bedroom count. So we went from 3 bedrooms to 6. And we did not add, we didn't do any additions, we didn't do any bump outs, we didn't sort of knock the roof off and just sort of build up, to a skyscraper. We took the existing footprint and turned it from a 3.2, I think, to a 6.4, I think, or 6.3.5, or almost 6.4, I suppose.
It was a 6.4.
Yeah, 6.4. So a 3.2 to a 6.4 without adding square footage. We just use the existing footprint and and sort of worked within that frame. So I'm assuming that when you went to the house for the first time, you could see the potential in adding bedrooms. And why do you think we went to 6? Why did you choose 6? Why not 3, 4, 5? 20?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and it had everything to do with the market at the time, right? This was in 2024, right? I mean, we have sky high interest rates, and so whenever you're looking to put a long-term mortgage on the house after you refinance it, that interest rate is going to come into play by way of a mortgage payment every single month. And so obviously you want to generate enough income that you can offset that mortgage payment. And so, with 7.5% interest rates, which was what we were running our numbers at, that came out to, on a $900,000 to about $1 million property, which is kind of the ARV of that property. I mean, you're looking at a $5,500 mortgage. And so that's what led us to believe, hey, we need to hit the 6 bedrooms in order to generate enough income and then have it cash flow as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we did the numbers. So wherever you are, you need to contact your housing authority and find out how much do they pay for 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, 6 bedrooms, etc. And based on that, and based on the demand locally, you can then decide what bedroom count makes the most sense for you wherever you're located and things like that. Okay, so we've decided to turn this into a 6 bedroom. I'll briefly, because I know we're 7:20 now. Let's talk about the rehab and any problems, issues. We've all had rehab stories. I mean, we could have a couple of drinks over that one, but share your experiences on this $300,000 rehab.
What are you talking about? I never ran into any issues. Nobody ever runs into issues during the rehab, not with their contractor. Of course not. No, I wish that were true. In reality, the biggest challenge during the renovation was actually, I'd say, during the design of it. We had the option to either put, we had an unfinished basement. We also had an attic space. And the big unknown was, hey, can we turn this attic space into a bedroom? Otherwise, we'd have to stuff 3 bedrooms in the basement, which, preferably wouldn't want to do that, just by way of bedroom to bathroom ratio, we'll call it. And it just flowed a little nicer to be able to provide another recreation room, which we ultimately were able to in the basement. But this attic space was everything for this house. We walked up there. It had some stairs leading from the 2nd floor to the attic. And then, of course, because this is, a single family home with a, monosloped roof, the contours of the room followed the slope of the roof. And so you had some areas where you can walk to the attic and you could stand up tall. But then there were other areas where, because of the slope of the roof, you kind of had to crouch down and couldn't stand up properly. And so we had to really tinker with that space and really understand the DCHA requirements for a legal bedroom, to convince ourselves that we were comfortable that, hey, we can actually put a room up here, and therefore it kind of changed the design of the other parts of the house.
Yeah. Okay. So, normally, on rehab projects, typically 3 things are guaranteed to happen. Usually, 1, it always takes longer than what you think it's going to take. 2, it always costs more than what you think it's going to be. 3, usually, anyway, for most people, you have a falling out with your contractors at some point in the project. And did any of those 3 things happen to you, or yours was the perfect the perfect rehab where none of those things happened?
They say there's a first for everything. Unfortunately, I was not the first one to have the perfect rehab, but it was pretty darn close. I'm not gonna lie, I had a fantastic team with me. The contractors were great. I partnered up with you, who really were able to consult and sort of navigate through the entire process, which was eternally helpful when it comes to doing your first deal. Right, you want to partner with people that have more experience. But the contractor, they were fantastic. We had a very, very open line of communication, and we just worked very, very well together.
Well, why do you think that was? Is that because you had a meeting of the minds in terms of the scope of work, or you're able to hash out the issues before it became a really clashy situation? What was the reason why you felt? Because I like to share your experiences with other people, so that way hopefully they can take action and avoid some of the problems that other people have.
Yeah, I think first things first is setting expectations. Now, what do I mean by that? Right, whenever you come to do a rehab, you have a scope of work that needs to be completed. Having a really, really well written scope of work that's clear, concise, and then also reviewing that with the contractor, walking the site with them, 2-3 times to just make sure that everybody's on the same page, was really the key. And then the other thing that I would sort of advice tip that I would give anybody that's trying the strategy is, when working with a contractor, have on-site meetings with them on a weekly basis, 1, even 2 if you're starting to get into it, just so that you can see the process of construction of the renovation step by step, but also to be able to talk with your contractor, go through the schedule line item by line item and say, hey, let's hit, what are you going to hit this week? Making sure, setting the expectation that, hey, by the end of this week, I expect A, B, C, D to be done because that's what you told me. And it's an accountability tool. And so I'd say having a really, really refined scope of work, and then also having meetings with them frequently throughout the entire construction process.
Yeah. No, that's great words. I mean, again, on Saturday at the event, which you can sign up by going to the website, you'll see the house. You'll see exactly what Charles is talking about in terms of the attic, the A-frame, and how I was able to turn that attic into a 6-bedroom. In fact, he even put a half bathroom up there. And how he was able to put 2 bedrooms in the basement, including another rec room down there. I mean, it's amazing what Charles was able to accomplish on this project. So come on down and you can see it in person, and you can see exactly what he's talking about. And also we're going to drill deeper in, at the time. Okay, we're going to keep on moving. So let's say, okay, so at some point the rehab finished and you still had a full hair of head on your head. So you didn't go bald,
I don't think no gray hairs yet. No gray hairs.
Gray hairs on you, so it couldn't be that bad. Yeah. And then, also, if anyone's got some questions, please put the questions in the chat box. We're going to go to in about 10-15 minutes. So if you got some questions for Charles, anything to real estate, anything to his project, put them in the chat box. We'll get to them in a few minutes from now. Okay, so we've now done the rehab. And now it's to turn this thing over to the next stage. We've done the buy, we've done the renovate. We then go to the rent phase. And it didn't take us very long. It didn't take you very long to find somebody. Let's just step back. What was your initial apprehensions about the whole tenant finding selection process? And let's just talk about that, and then talk about what really happened in the end, including some of the stories that you heard.
Yeah. So, I mean, in general, I think when people hear Section 8 or voucher holders, they immediately, grab everything and just run. I think that's the general sort of what people think when they see
stereotype.
Yeah, stereotype, and that couldn't be further than the truth. And I'll be honest. In the beginning, I also thought that, but I also knew that there were amazing families out there that simply needed a chance. And I saw that from, the years of following you and just seeing it through that entire process, that really convinced me that, hey, there are more of those people than a lot of the stereotypes given. And so, when I first embarked on this journey, that was what I had in my head is I really just focus on the purpose part and told myself, look, I want to provide affordable housing. I want to provide affordable housing for these families and give them an opportunity that they can live in for the entirety of their life.
So that was the before. Now that you've been through the process, share with us some of the stories that you heard these families as they, kind of came to your house. First of all, what was the, Charles' house is beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful, great renovation, he staged the house so it looks like a model home. It looks like a home, not just a rehab. And so when people came to the house, what was their initial impressions?
Yeah, just kind of shell shocked, right? They immediately loved it. Uh, Hopefully, the folks that can, everybody that can come out, you'll sort of walk in through the door, and it is just completely open concept, lots of light coming through, and they just loved it right from the get go, and you could just see their eyes light up, and just them like, wow, like. So it was really rewarding to see that, because you can just see that, they don't see these home, like Section 8 tenants. A lot of tenants, market tenants, they just don't see a house of that's renovated that well, and the opportunity that's there. And so it was heartwarming to see that. And the first thing that that I ask them is, uh, does it look nice, and are you interested in living here? And they would say absolutely. And they'd start just roaming around the house, and I love seeing that.
So I mean, 'cause this is something which I like to get share with the audience, is the stories of some of the houses that they live in currently and why they move in. Was there, did you hear anything that sort of came to mind as to why they were leaving where they were and why they were interested in coming to your house?
Yeah, what was shocking to me was that the stories that they told me was pretty consistent across the board. They had terrible landlords that just didn't take care of their property. I mean, I heard of stories where the house literally was falling in and like hit them on the head, and they had to go to the hospital. Like the properties themselves were literally getting abated. That they had emergency vouchers to leave the house. I mean, this is the condition of properties that, some landlords, they just see it as an investment vehicle, and don't think about the personal side, which is honestly sad. And so, there was that story there. Second would be really the neighborhoods, right? They're living in parts of the city that they just don't feel safe. They don't feel safe themselves. They don't feel safe that their kids are there and like growing up in an area like that. You could just hear it in their voice. And some of these individuals that came through it, I mean, they were emotional when telling these stories.
Yeah. So without going into too much detail on the screening process, ultimately we did select somebody. And why did you select the family that you did?
Yeah. I love the fact that they came together as a family to first come and take a look at the house. That said a lot to me, in that everybody was aligned in their mission to find a nice house to live, a nice place that they can live for a long time, and where they see their future prospering. And so being able to meet their their family, and just seeing all of their mannerisms, it really dispelled any kind of stereotype that certainly I had about Section 8. And that's when I knew where, wow, there are people here. There's real families that are in need of help, and also just would love the opportunity to come and live.
So I know that what caught my attention on the initial meeting was the family were very they were very nice. I mean, they presented themselves very well. They were a close knit family, and you could see that they wanted the opportunity to live in a nice house in a nice area, and to rent from a great landlord. And they had some bad experiences where they were before. They had vouchers whereby, I mean, conditions, which, you know, as you just said, the part of, I think the ceiling fell on top of the head of one of the houses. And but we did do a home visit. And I know a lot of people don't do home visits. They feel that the tenants would push back. Did you feel that any of the tenants had any problems with you coming to their homes?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And you know, one of the things that, you know, I remember even asking you, I'm like, I feel like this isn't typical, a typical part of the process. But, you know, it was also part of just setting expectations right from the get-go, is you know, being able to go and visit and see their homes. You know, the tier one tenants that you always talk about, they're not afraid to show their home because they take care of it. They take care of it like it's their own home. And that's exactly the type of, you know, tier one tenant that you're looking for, that everybody's looking for, that would love to live in their investment property because, you know, they can protect your investment. And so, you know, going to making this site, the home visit, it was actually quite nice to just to meet everybody, you know, to see their space and see their decoration and see their personality come out.
Right. So you were there when we actually offered them the house. That's an interesting experience. How did you feel when you know, offered them the house, and what was the response from the family when they heard the news that they were going to get your house?
Yeah, I mean, they were just jumping up and down, super excited. I just gave her a hug, you know, as Stefan, and just, you can really see them just light up. You know, you just saw the head of the family, just all the emotions come out, recognizing the opportunity, and the opportunity not just for themselves, but for their family too. And that's huge. Right. You know, that's sort of the emotion that I was waiting for whenever I first embarked on this journey, was being able to do that for a family.
Exactly. It's very rewarding. And so on. So now that so once we offered the family the house, and then the next step was to fill the paperwork to submit to the housing authority here locally. Again, we don't have much time, but we got through it.
So it's a lot of forms. It is a lot of paperwork.
It's a pretty labor intensive process. But it is what it is. It's government bureaucracy. We have to go through it. There are steps, and we'll talk about that on Saturday when you come in. Once you selected a tenant, how do you navigate through that whole bureaucracy to get the paperwork in and to sort of get the ball rolling? I know that at this, okay, maybe it's a good time to share with it, if you feel comfortable. What was I know we haven't yet finalized the rent yet, but what kind of rents what kind of numbers are we talking about, Charles?
Yeah, so a 6-bedroom home, and this is a property in Brookland in Northeast DC. The rental income that DCHA provides is somewhere between $6,000 and $6,500 for a 6-bedroom. So yeah, those are the numbers there.
What are you looking to get?
Yeah, the higher end of that, hopefully. Exactly. But you know, it's one of those things that we sort of talk strategy when it came to locating comps, and then providing the amenities as well, because that makes a difference when it comes to the DCHA inspector coming and taking reviewing your home and inspecting it to make sure that it's actually passes all of their requirements. And so we tried to put in as many amenities as we possibly can. So, you know, we're talking washer, dryer, you know, brand new stainless steel kitchen appliances. You know, there's
fans. You got ceiling
fans. There's a carport out back. So amenities like that is favorable when it comes to the DCHA inspector coming through and coming up.
So let's assume that you know, so it looks like Charles is going to get something in the 6,000s, between 6,000 and 6,500. And currently, how much is the tenant paying where she is? Do you know?
how much is the tenant's paying? About $200
right now.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So let's think about this. There's a tenant who's currently paying $200, and if all things were equal, she'll probably end up paying $200 or less at Charles's house. And the rent is going to be, let's just say, keep in the middle, 6,250. That's halfway between 6,000 and 6,500. Let's just keep it simple. So if the rent is 6,250 and she's paying 200, it means that every month, you're getting $6,050 guaranteed from from the housing authority. And the tenant, obviously, she loves the home, so I don't think it's going to be a problem collecting $200 from her. So how long do you think she wants to stay there, Charles?
I mean, if I had to pay $200 for rent for a beautiful home that I've never seen before, and I mean, really forever. And I hope that that's the case, because one of the silent killers when it comes to operating a rental business is vacancy. Having to turn over tenants, having to clean the house, clean the property, wipe it down, and then go through the entire process of screening tenants and finding and picking a tenant. I mean, that takes time, if not 1, maybe 2 months of rental income, and that in itself can probably wipe out profits for about a year.
Exactly.
So it's just minimizing that vacancy is key.
Okay, it's now 7:40, so I'm going to go to Q&A. So again, on Saturday, we're going to have an event at Charles's house. You heard the story. You now met Charles, the future, empire builder. And so on. So if you're in the DC area, even if you're not in the DC area, maybe worthwhile to come down, spend some quality time with Charles, myself. You can network. There was some light refreshments there, and it'd be great if we could meet you, see you. You can register. Go to my website, www.joeasimo.com, and you can sign up there and register. There's a nominal charge. It's not that much. But I definitely think that the value you're going to get is worth exponential what you're going to pay. So again, go to my website. For those, let's have a look. It's going to be this website here. www.joeasimo.com, www.joeasimo.com. I'll leave it up there, and that way you can register. So let's get down to some questions. And wow, there's a lot of questions here. Oh my God. Okay, let's plow through them. Hey, Dowtu, hope you're doing well in Phoenix, Arizona. It looks like yes, sir, I can hear Charles, so they can hear you, Charles. Mr. Charles, congratulations on deciding to purchase your first rental. Glad you were able to meet Dr. Joe Asimo in 2017. Good for you. Okay. How were you able to find private money?
Yeah, I think we glossed over this a little bit. We talked about just the acquisition cost and the construction cost of the project itself. The private money was, so I told, I grew up in a family that also invested in real estate. And so they kind of knew the power of it, but yet they still didn't know how to do sort of the BRRRR and the value adds. They sort of just did turnkey rental properties. And so I had some family members that were just interested. Of course, I had to sell them on the idea of Washington, D.C., Section 8, and, show them the numbers. And so that took a little bit of, I shouldn't say a little bit of time. It took a long time for them to come around and understand that, there's really an opportunity here. And so a lot of it was, family money and private investors back home in Canada that also were interested in investing in the capital of America.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the point is that there's money out there. It's not easy to get money. Not everybody has, rich families or wealthy parents, or not everybody has that. I mean, we don't. But there's money out there, and the challenge for you and I and everybody, including Charles, was how do you tap into that? There's banks, there are mortgage companies, there's hard money lenders, there's individuals, there's credit unions. I mean, there's lots of sources of money, and the important thing is not to be intimidated by it. And you start where you are, and you start from there. Otherwise, you'll be thinking, when am I going to start? And 3 years later, you're still thinking. At some point, you have to figure it out and then pull the trigger and keep going. Okay, was location a consideration in this purchase, or was the purchase price the biggest factor?
Yeah, you know, both played a major factor in it. But as you always hear in real estate, location, location, location. And that still holds true even with the BRRRR strategy with Section 8, because ultimately your tenant that you're creating these products for, they are ultimately after a safe neighborhood, a safe, quiet neighborhood. You know, there's no drama going on, that they can live in a very long time and have their kids grow up in these environments. And so location was key. And then as well, yeah, the purchase price, because as investors, we're also trying to, you know, create a profitable business. And so we can keep doing this over and over again. And so that certainly did play a factor.
Yeah, and I think also the property, the type of property, because if you're trying to get 6 bedrooms, you can't get 6 bedrooms on every house. Only certain properties you're able to do that. So I think it's a combination of all these things. The location, the price, because obviously the numbers have to make sense, and also the property as well. Ty, okay, if you plan to do a full gut rehab, does the current number of bedrooms and bathrooms matter if you are basically starting from scratch with the rehab? So if you plan to do a full gut rehab, does the current number of bedrooms and bathrooms matter? And so on.
Yeah, so I think you just touched on this a little bit, and ultimately, you know, you have to look at the square footage of the house. Some houses just are not built or does not have the square footage to fit 6 bedrooms in a functional manner. Now, could you squeeze in 6 bedrooms and 1 bathroom? Yeah, I mean, sure you can, but it's not realistic. It's not what the final user is going to like. And so in a sense, yeah, I mean, you have to look for a specific criteria when you're executing and creating a 6-bedroom home.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not necessary to. I mean, depending on your market, you may be okay with a 4-bedroom or a 5-bedroom. It's just that we're paying so much here in the Washington D.C. area that the numbers only work and get a decent cash flow with 6. When I first started, you could do it with 3, and then as prices went up, we went to 4. As prices went even higher, went to 5, and now it's kind of getting to the 6 range. So it is what it is. Where you are, it may be you need to add that many bedrooms or even any bedrooms at all. So that may be a factor as well. Do full rehab contractors warranty their work for a period of time?
That's a great question. Most do. Usually it's at least. So I also work in the construction industry as a designer, and for the most part, whenever a general contractor bids on a job, they do have to provide a 1 to 2 year warranty, a workmanship warranty. So,
I mean, you got some good contractors here, so if there's something goes wrong, they're going to stand behind their work, and so I think you should be fine there, within reason, of course. If they want you to do the whole thing again, they may push back, but
yeah, and that comes that is sort of along the lines of having a good relationship too. Yeah. I mean, like I said right from the get-go, real estate is really a people business. Yeah. And you got to treat your contractors like a pot of gold. Having a great relationship with them is really how you can survive in this business.
Because you can't do this business without good contract. It's just not possible. It'll drive you crazy. Congrats, Charles. Hey, Marlon. Hope you're doing well.
Hey, Marlon. Thank you.
Okay. Katie. I think Katie's in Colorado, I think. Hello, gentlemen. Charles, it sounds as if you acted as GC for your own project.
If I did, I might not have any more hair left on my head. No, I leveraged a general contractor. They were fantastic. If you're also in the DC area, I cannot recommend them enough. They just made it possible. I mean, try to juggle, a lot of us have, a W-2 job that we're working, nine to five, and having a honest, trustworthy contractor that knows how to execute, so that you can actually, you know, live during the daytime and not have to worry about it is huge.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said for peace of mind. When I first started out, I had contractors who showed up drunk. I had guys who I had to wake them up from bed. Guys who didn't have a car, so I had to drive them to Home Depot and take them home at night. I mean,
I luckily did not have to deal with that.
yeah, that stuff gets old real quick. Good evening, Dr. Joe. Good evening, Marlon. Okay, Katie again. Either way, seems that you did an excellent job. Interested to hear about your next endeavor. You thinking about your next endeavor, Charles?
Absolutely, because the BRRRR process is not complete until you repeat it. So Katie, thank you so much, and hopefully you can come out and join us for the next one as well.
Okay. Again, if you got some questions, put them in the chat box. We've got about 5 more minutes left, and so on. So, Ty, what allows a voucher holder to qualify for a 6-bedroom voucher? Is it the number of dependents?
Joe, I'll let you take this one because you're you're way more experienced and educated about this than I.
The way it works, Ty, is that first of all, to get a voucher, it's almost like what's the right word? It's a scarce resource. For every 1,000 people want it, there's only one voucher available. So there's a huge waiting list. Some people are on there for 5, 10, 15, 20 years to get one. So it's almost like hitting a pot of gold. And so on. To get a voucher depends on a couple of things. One is your income and the location that you're in. Some bigger cities have more vouchers than smaller towns and rural places. So, and it's usually the program is administered locally by a local housing authority. So, assuming that your income qualifies, then the next thing is how many people in your household. So the more people in your household, the larger the number of, the larger the size of your voucher. So if you've got, let's say, 4 people in your household, you will not get a 6-bedroom voucher, okay, because you don't have enough people to qualify for 6 bedrooms. However, you may get a 2 or 3 or 4-bedroom voucher. So it depends on the how many people in your household. Also, it depends on the sexes of the household members. So in Washington, D.C., they do not allow males and females to share the same bedroom. Okay, so if you have a mother who has 2 children, a girl and a boy, so it's 3 people altogether, in Washington, D.C., they will qualify for a 3-bedroom voucher. 1 for the head of household, the mother, 1 for the boy, and 1 for the girl. I hope everybody gets that one. Now, some jurisdictions, they don't care if it's a male or female. They can share the same room. So in those jurisdictions, they'll get a 2-bedroom voucher, 1 for the head of household and 1 for the children. So the boy and the girl, according to them, should be in the same bedroom. Okay, so again, it depends on the number of people in the household, the sexes of the occupants, and that will determine the voucher size. So to have a 6-bedroom voucher, I think the tenant you selected, how many people in a household? I forgot now. It was about
so there was head of the household, and then there were five daughters and 1 grandson.
Okay, so there's a total of 7 people in Charles's household, and they have a 6-bedroom voucher, and that's based on the composition of the family, male, female, ages, and things like that. So you don't need to have 20 kids to get a 6-bedroom voucher. It just depends on the jurisdiction you're in, and also the age range and the sexes of the children. So that's how it works, Ty. If I know the jurisdiction you're in, then, or you can do some research to find out how they determine it there, and so on. So it is the number of dependents, and and the number of people in the household that will determine the size of voucher that you're going to get. Okay, next one. Yao. What's the difference between Airbnb and short-term rentals? Well, okay. Okay, Airbnb, and I'll take that one unless you want to. Do you want to start it off, Charles, or should I take it?
You can go right ahead.
Okay. There are things called short-term rentals, which is typically, as I say, short-term rentals. People go to a house, maybe rent it for a day or two, or a weekend, or a week, and and that's it. So the Airbnb is the biggest platform. There are other platforms out there that do short-term rentals. VRBO, Booking.com, and a few others. They all do short-term rentals. So typically it's less than 30 days. I used to do short-term rentals. We were getting people for a weekend, a few days, a week, and things like that. And then the DC government banned it. Literally, they said that we're going to take out short-term rentals, and they moved to another model whereby if you were to do short-term rental like Airbnb, you had to get a license, you had to live in a home, and it has to be your primary residence. And obviously that didn't work for me, so I couldn't do short-term rentals. They went to another model, which is what they call medium-term rentals, which is 30-day plus bookings. So if people want to come for 30 days or more, then I can do that. And I've done that before. That's called medium-term rentals as opposed to short-term rentals. So hopefully that explains the differences, Yao, between short-term rentals. Airbnb is a sort of a subset of short-term rentals and mid-term rentals. And what Charles is doing is a long-term rentals where he has tenants who are looking to stay there forever. And or not ever, but people who stay usually more than a year. That's what typically a year plus is the typical time span for a long-term rental. Okay. Anything you want to add to that, Charles?
Nope. I think you hit the nail on the head.
Okay. Has a voucher program visited your property to inspect the property?
Not yet. So I recently submitted all the paperwork that DCHA requires. It's kind of being processed right now, being reviewed, and once it does get approved, then that'll allow me to qualify for an inspection. So that is TBD.
Yeah. So here in Washington, it's a hot policy. First of all, you submit the paperwork. They look at the numbers, make sure that the rent that you're asking is what they call reasonable, affordable, and so forth. So if Charles wanted to ask for $1 million per month, there's a pretty good chance that he may get rejected. Okay, so somebody has to determine, is the rent that Charles is asking for reasonable? Is it within their payment standards? Is it affordable for the tenant and things like that? So that's where he is at this point. He submitted the paperwork. They're going through the paperwork, and we'll make a determination. Yes, the numbers, the rent that you're asking for, we're okay with. Or if the rent that you're asking for is too high, they may say, well, we can't pay what you want, but we can offer you this. And so a little bit of horse trade in there. And then ultimately, there'll be a consensus and agreement on the rent. And at that point, it then gets transferred over to the inspections department. And the inspections department will come over to the house and make sure that Charles's house passes what we call housing quality standards, HQS, which is federal requirements for a property to be habitable. So that hopefully should be happening very, very soon. And then also, because it's a rental property, then Charles is going to have to get a business license, a rental license as well. So another inspector has to come there, different inspector, to make sure that it's compliant with the DC housing code and so on. So it's going to be a couple of inspectors. And then when he was doing the rehab, he had other inspectors coming there to check the house for that stuff. So several inspectors are going to be showing up at this house, and but it's all good. I don't think he's got anything to worry about. He's in good hands, and so on. But So the inspection is going to be next. Again, if you got some questions, I think we got about 1 more minute, and then we're going to wrap it up. Let's have a look. I'm told DC is not landlord friendly. How do you go about protecting yourself?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think that comes up a lot. There are actually a lot of cities that quote unquote aren't landlord friendly. And you know what, I really harp on sort of just having good relationships, even with your tenant, right? The landlord tenant relationship. I feel like a lot of people abuse that, but it's just like having a relationship with your banker, with really your friend. It's key to making creating a good relationship and having that clear line of communication, and responding to them if there's something that goes wrong, right? That's sort of our job as landlords, is to provide a working, beautiful home for our tenants. And so long as that's taken care of, um, hopefully you'll never even make it to the landlord tenant court and have those problems.
Yeah, I'll answer that question three ways, Yao. One is, at the end, as Charles is saying, the relationship is the key, and so invest in the relationship with your tenant first and foremost. Well, first of all, get the right person in your house, because if you get if you get the wrong person in your house, then you exponentially increase the chances that you're gonna have problems. So the screening is your first line of defense. Make sure you take the time to get the right person, and so forth. That's number one. Number two is, once you selected somebody, is invest in the relationship, work with them, make it a win-win scenario. They want, make sure you're a good landlord, make sure that you're warm, you're not condescending, looking down on them, you're not arrogant, all those kind of things, which you nurture the relationship. Then the next thing is to have a good lease. Just in case you do have to go to court, you want to have the written documents that support and protect you. And then the next tier would be, make sure you have the right insurance and protections in place, just in case something happens, a fire, a flood, whatever it is. So there are different levels of protections. But in my opinion, the first two are the key. Make sure you do a thorough screening to get the right person in your house, not the wrong one. I mean, Charles has selected a tier 1. There are tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, tier Z tenants out there. You don't want to do anyone but tier 1, in my opinion. You have just less problems. Then once you've got that, nurture, invest in the relationship, have a good lease, and have good insurance and coverage to protect yourself just in case. So anyway, it's now 8:01, so we've kind of gone over our time. Again, just a quick, for those people who are in the DC area, and or if you're not in the DC area, I highly, highly recommend that you try to come to the event on Saturday. And you can register at my website, www.joeasimo.com. www.joeasimo.com. It's a nominal fee, $49. It's, you got refreshments. You're going to have some quality time with Charles and I. And I'm going to do a little. Charles is going to be coming a few minutes late on Saturday, so I'll be doing this. If you've got more questions, we'll do that. So there's a special Ask Dr. Joe segment on Saturday. And so if you've got all your questions to real estate, come on in, and we'll do all that. And then Charles is going to be there, and you can pick his brain, and and then hopefully you can network, meet other people, and have a great time. So is there anything else you want to say, Charles, before we wrap it up for the day?
Yeah, I will just throw a quick plug for the event, because that's really how I started. Just to be able to be in a room with like-minded individuals, and then also see a project, and be in a fully renovated home, a project that just recently happened, because there's nothing more convincing than having and being in somewhere tangible and just seeing it for yourself. I certainly know that's what inspired me. That's what motivated me to do this 7 years ago. And so I really, really can't recommend this more to everybody that's interested. And hopefully we see you guys all on Saturday.
So we will see you on Saturday, and go to the website, www.joeasimo. You can meet the man, the myth, the legend. 10 years from now, you'll say, wow, I remember that guy. I remember when he did his first deal. Now he's buying the whole of DC. He's buying the whole of America, and so on. So with that said, my friends, hopefully we'll see you on Saturday. If not, we'll see you next Wednesday on Wealth Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So until then, have yourself a wonderful evening. Take care, guys. Bye for now.